The Detroit Lions are definitely looking for another edge rusher, as they've been meeting with a lot at the scouting combine. But there is one that I do not think they have yet met with that could absolutely be the human missile that they need for their defense. And we're going to talk about it, so stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. It doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10, 5, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving on in. Folks, for Detroit Lions fans, the, how should I say it, enamorment of getting another edge rusher has not, first and foremost, at all waned, number one. But also, number two, many are still waiting with bated breath to hear of a move that the Lions are going to make when it comes to getting another edge rusher. And in one sense, the Lions have already kind of, made that, distinction by Brad Holmes saying that they're not overlooking the edge rushing component. They're not overlooking adding more pass rushers. And the fact that they've met with so many pass rushers at the, scouting combine is definitely, a signal that they have a huge interest in wanting to add another edge rusher in the draft. But the question remains, who officially are they really focusing on? So far, they've met with guys like Jack Sawyer, who is a guy that I have been, very, very high on. They've met with some other guys. They've met with quite a few, actually. I'm going to put the list up here if I can find it. But my whole point of the matter is this. When it comes to the edge rushing component, the one thing about this draft that we're getting set to, get to in about another month or so, is that this is a very, very deep edge rushing class. And like I've said, I've done, profiles on Jack Sawyer. I've done also a profile on Landon Jackson. Well, now I'm presenting yet another edge rusher that I think the Lions would be particularly enamored with. I already know Lions fans are. Now, what particular edge rusher am I talking about here? I'm talking about edge rusher Jason Pearce Jr. out of Tennessee. When it comes to Jason Pearce, he has many, and I mean this, many things that teams that are in first and foremost need of pass rushing help absolutely love, crave, whatever term you'd like. But what I particularly love about Jason Pearce is that, and I think some fans are going to like this as well as the Lions, is that he has such a massive ceiling and massive upside when it comes to what the Lions could particularly get out of him. And if you've watched him, I know I have watched him on tape. I've watched him in terms of his, highlight reels. You can easily, and I mean this, you can easily see why I have so much hype for this particular edge rusher and why I could particularly see him wearing the Honolulu blue and silver. So let's take a look at this guy, which I like to call a pass rushing missile, and get a little bit more in depth, get a little bit more acquainted with him, so that way I can present you guys what this guy could particularly be for the Lions. And honestly, what I realistically see him as, this guy's an offensive wrecking ball. Because this guy has so many things, he has so many components that you realistically would just love to have as a defense. He is just a disruptive monster. He is a disruptive demon when it comes to impacting the quarterback, getting after him, sacking him, causing trouble, maintaining pressure. There's just so much about Pearce that I really, really like, and that I think Lions fans really, really like. So what about him do I particularly like? Well, let's take a look at what Jason Pearce has to offer. First and foremost, I like his height and the fact that he is 6'5". That's right around where, Aiden Hutchinson is at. I also love the fact that this guy is ridiculously fast. There's a reason why I call him a pass rushing missile. Coming into the combine, it was speculated that his 40 time was going to be at a 4.49. What we actually now know is that his official 40 time is like a 4.47. Because if I recall correctly, I think the first time he ran his 40 at the combine, it was a 4.5. And then on his second go-through, he got it up to a 4.47. So I really, really like his speed. I like his height. The one thing I don't like at the moment is his size. He's only listed at 243 pounds. So he could stand to add some weight. Now, why am I saying that? Well, let's understand something here. When you're talking about these tackles that these edge rushers have to go up against, they need to definitely have speed. Obviously, they have to have that. But they also have to have weight so that way they can get that power behind them to really get after the quarterback, because they're going to need it if they're going to try and get through these freaking, tackles. But I have no doubt in my mind that the Lions could get some weight on him, and that obviously he could get himself some weight on him and make himself that full embodiment of a pass rusher that the Lions truly want. He has the size in terms of the height. He certainly as hell has the speed. He just needs to add a little weight. But I'm not too worried about that. But again, like I said, if you watch this guy's tape, and obviously if you watch the combine, this guy has a ridiculous, explosive first step, second step, third step. I mean, the guy's just absolutely a ticking time bomb when it comes to an edge rusher. He has also an unrelenting motor. Like, his motor never stops. So again, there's already, if you just look at the base level of, freaking Jason Pearce, there's already a lot I like about him. But his pass rushing talent already shows, it already displays itself in terms of the elite standing traits and qualities, such as this guy has remarkable, and I mean this, remarkable bend. He has great ankle flex. He also, let's think about it. Up until college, he wasn't really an edge rusher. So despite his lack of experience as an edge rusher, this guy has great hand usage, and on top of that, he has a good pass rush plan when he is going head-to-head, toe-to-toe with these different types of tackles. He also has insane closing speed. And that not only helps him in terms of quarterback chasing, it also helps him in terms of rushing down freaking receivers out of the backfield, running backs. I mean, this guy just has an innate sense of where the ball is going, and he has a ridiculous amount of burst to get to the ball. He also has great change of direction, which allows him to force offensive linemen to respect his cutback counters. Because again, we all know that freaking edge rushers are not going to have the right angle towards certain guys at any given moment. But his change of direction is so ridiculously good that if he's out of position, he can find a way to get back and get into position really damn quickly. And the other thing I really do like about him is that he has a great understanding of diagnosing offenses more often than other guys by sniffing out screenplays. And again, when you're talking about an edge rusher, this is something that you really want, because when you get to the NFL level, edge rushers are not just all about getting towards the quarterback, though that is what they are primarily about. They're trying to apply pressure, they're trying to sack the quarterback, make him uncomfortable, have him move around in the pocket, keep his eyes from being downfield. These are all things that you want edge rushers to have as their primary repertoire as far as getting after an offense. But the ability to stop opposing offenses by, blowing up screenplays, getting after running backs or receivers in the screen game, making sure they set that hard edge so that way if they can't particularly get to the guy, other guys can get to him. These are all things that when you watch James Pearce, you instantaneously see on his tape. You instantaneously see in terms of his highlights. So when it comes to Pearce, I look at this guy and he is just a heat-seeking, heat-piercing missile that just instantaneously causes problems and disruption for opposing offenses. Now, again, as I've said about other potential, candidates, I've said about other potential guys that the Lions are looking for, there's nothing about a specific guy that is 100% positive. There's going to be things that, he definitely can add to his game. There's definitely things that he can stand to get better at. But one of the things that I've noticed with him is that how do I put this? It's not mostly technique-based that he really has problems with, though there are a few exceptions to that. It's mostly physiological aspects that, he could stand to get better at. Case in point, like I said, his weight. At 243 pounds, he's just too light in the saddle to be an effective edge rusher and setter at the NFL level consistently. That's not to say he couldn't do the job. It's just that when you want a guy to be that kind of an edge rusher, they have to have that kind of weight in the saddle to be able to stand up to the rigors and the punishment that these offensive tackles are going to have. Because you have to think about it. Offensive tackles in the NFL, they're in the high 200s, low 300s, maybe even mid 300s in terms of weight. You have to have that weight in order to counter what these offensive tackles are going to have, because they're going to have the weight, they're going to have the power, they're going to have arm length. So you have to have something to counter that than just pure speed. So for me, the way I look at it is that the Lions and Pearce himself would probably want to add at least another 12, maybe 17 pounds of muscle to himself to bring him more in line with what standard NFL edge rushers are doing in the NFL. But again, let's understand it. Adding muscle mass is not particularly hard for NFL players because, again, if that's what you're truly trying to go after, there are plenty of training regimens, training programs, and, there's all these trainers out there. There's all of these guys that, are pretty easy to find, especially if you're in a professional athlete mode like he is, to go out there and add that muscle mass while at the same time not losing that destructive speed that he has. But I will say this as well. Some other things about him that you definitely will notice is that, again, due to his hard rushing style, and again, like I said, this guy's a missile. He's a wrecking ball. He goes at it 110% of everything that he has. You have to understand, I'm really excited about this guy. Due to his hard rushing style, he has shown in the past that he can fail to break down his feet. Again, if you ever play football, what they will tell you is you need to break down your feet. You need to get a solid base. You need to put yourself in a position that if you have a guy that's trying to get away from you, you have your feet under yourself. So that way, if he decides to make a move, a juke, a cutback, whatever the case is, you have a solid base to move wherever he's going. Well, one of the things that you will notice, especially if you pay attention to him from college, is he can sometimes fail to break down his feet, which leads him to missing sacks on more athletic quarterbacks. And that can be a problem at the NFL level because we have to understand something here. When you go from the college level to the NFL level, these quarterbacks, even if they're not more athletic, They are more smart in terms of how they can avoid edge rushers by just making a simple move in the pocket, adjusting themselves, whatever the case is. They're very smart. They're very, nimble with their feet in the pocket to be able to make slight moves, slight variations of their body to get out of the way. So one of the things that definitely is going to have to change for Pearce when he gets to the next level is he's going to have to learn how to break down his feet a lot better, so that way he doesn't miss on particular sacks that would really help out the defense stopping offenses. Now, another thing is, like I said, the functional strength. Again, his functional strength is okay at the current level of what he's at, which is a rookie coming into the NFL. But again, he needs to add more of that to truly excel at the next level. Because again, you want a guy that can get to the quarterback in a damn hurry. You want that speed rusher. You want that guy that can really make a difference off the edge. But sometimes speed is not always going to be the recommended, thing to get to the quarterback. Sometimes you have to have just overwhelming, overpowering freaking dominance of strength to just bully freaking these tackles, tight ends, whatever have you. And again, kind of tying that in with the first point I made out, if you're trying to add muscle mass, you're trying to add power, you're kind of killing two birds with one stone by doing that. Because again, like I said, he needs to add more weight. If you add more weight in terms of muscle and you don't allow that speed to get sacrificed for it, you not only have this dominating combination of speed, but now you're adding power to it. And again, for me, that is something that the Lions can really easily correct and fix by just adding that weight to him. Now, in terms of the non-physiological things, because I've mentioned 3 physiological things that he could change to get better at, the one thing that is kind of more technique, kind of more schematic, is that he has also shown that he has some inconsistency in terms of run defense against gap run schemes, especially where there are pulling guards involved. Because he has an inability sometimes to read where those guards are coming from, what gap they're trying to assign themselves to open up the play. So understanding how guards in particular, when they're pulling to set up those gap run schemes, he needs to get better at recognizing that. So again, that's all about film study. That's all about understanding where you have to be in relation to the guard when they're pulling, how the guard is trying to manipulate you when the play's being set up. And that, again, comes with time, it comes with experience, it comes with game preparation, it comes with film watching. And again, when you take a look at the fact that we got Casey Rogers, I believe that's his name, but you take a look at him as a defensive lineman, I have no doubt in my mind that between him, Reeder, McNeil, Hutch, Zadarius Smith, all of these guys could not only, along with Coach Casey, they could get him up to speed much faster, so that way he could really understand and have a much better ability to recognize and understand how to attack those particular types of gap run schemes that are especially going to be used much more at the NFL level than what they were used at the college level. Because at the college level, you're going to see a whole bunch of different exotic looks. Because college is kind of like the Wild West in terms of schemes. You're going to see air raid, you're going to see zone, you're going to see, gap schemes, you're going to see West Coast schemes, you're going to see pro offensive schemes, you're going to see so many different things. So you kind of have to be a hybrid. You have to be a chameleon, if you will, to understand how to attack those kinds of things. At the NFL, it's more of one type of, offensive scheme, but they get more complex, they get more specific. So understanding that is going to be something that really helps out Pearce along the way. And I think that the Lions could really help him in understanding that to make him much more of a complete edge rusher than just, like I said, this dominant speed missile that he is. Now, moving on with that. Besides the obvious reasons that I've already stated, his high upside, high ceiling, the dominant speed that he has, his ability to impact offenses, be an obstructive force, getting to the quarterback, causing pressure, causing sacks, there are other things besides those obvious reasons of why I love the Lions drafting Pearce. One of those things is that you bring this guy in, even as a, rotational basis, even as a temporary basis, because chances are Hutch and Za'Darius, they're going to start as the edges. You can work Pearce in and be like, hey, we're going to have you in on these plays. We're going to have you on those plays. His true potential might take a season or two to fully, come out, fully shine through. But again, having Hutch, having Za'Darius, all the experience that they already have, all of that raw potential will be having a chance to grow exponentially faster behind Hutch and Za'Darius than if, he was just the lone guy coming in. So my point of the matter is behind Hutch, behind Za'Darius, with Coach Casey, his potential, his growth will be expedited. Reason number 2 that I really, really like Pearce, other than the obvious reasons, is that Pearce as an explosive pass rusher will allow the Lions to alternate between Za'Darius and Hutch, or something that I've thought about is that, let's say it's an obvious passing situation. It's a 2nd and long. It's a 3rd and long. You can now load up these pass rushers in obvious passing situations by moving Hutch or Za'Darius further inside. I'm not talking like over the guard per se or further in, but you could have freaking Za'Darius or Hutch move 1 or 2 spots inside and then have Pearce further outside. So now you've got 3 pass rushers that are coming. You can really compress, really condense the pass pocket, bring more power, bring more speed, bring more pass rushing capability, which is going to really help out the defense. Because again, the faster you can get to quarterbacks, the faster you can impose pressure, the faster you can disrupt the pocket. That not only helps the defensive line getting after the quarterback, but it also helps out the defensive backs on the back end by providing them with less time they have to cover. And also, it gives defensive backs a better chance to swat the ball down, tip the ball up, get interceptions, whatever have you. So again, by having Pearce, you can one of 2 things. You can stack him on top or behind one of those edge rushers. You can pull him out further out wide. There's so many different things that as a defensive, a defensive pass rushing element, as a defensive line coach, that you can really do with Pearce that you couldn't necessarily do with other guys because of just the disruptive force that he is. And then there's the final reason. Should the Lions decide not to re-sign Za'Darius after this season, because again, let's understand something. After this season, Za'Darius is going to be like 32, 33 years old. By that time, he's pretty much moving into that twilight stage of his career. Whether or not Za'Darius is willing to take a pay cut, willing to play for a little bit less, okay, now you have at least a guy that's been learning behind Za'Darius, learning behind Hutch. He should be able to step in and be more able to assume the duties of the other side edge rushing component opposite of Hutch. And thus, you have your bookend edges complete. Because I'm going to tell you this right now. You take a look at Pearce, you're going to be hard pressed to find a guy that has that kind of speed off of the edge like what Pearce has. It's hard to find guys that can run as fast, as hard as what Pearce can, because it's like, dude, at 243 pounds, you run a 4.47 as an edge rusher, that's instantly getting a lot of people's notice. That's instantly getting a massive red flag popping up in a good way, not a bad way, a good way to say, okay, if we add this dude to our pass rushing element, we can do so many things with our defense to really impact opposing offenses. And so for me, having him come in, still making an immediate impact in places, but learning behind Hutch and Za'Darius, and then, like I said, if Za'Darius is not able to come back, we can't work out a deal, or you know what, he wants to go somewhere else, whatever the case might be, now you have a guy who's had a year learning behind one of the best defensive line coaches, learning behind a whole bunch of guys on the defensive line that can pass on their wisdom and knowledge to really expedite his growth and potential to shine through. To me, it's just a match made in heaven. So for me, that's why I really like James Pearce, because I look at him and I'm like, okay, there's a ton of upside. There's a ton of great things that I can see with Pearce being added to this defense that, Kelvin Shepard, Casey, Dan Campbell, and the rest of the coaches, and obviously the players that I've already mentioned, are really going to like about Pearce. And again, when you take a look at his statistics, I forgot to bring this up earlier on in the episode, but he has shown that at Tennessee, in the SEC, he can compete. The SEC, other than the Big Ten, is considered the best NCAA football conference in college football. So if he can compete and play well there, he should have no problem with all the things that I've already mentioned to improve his game to become one of the most immediate young pass rushers in terms of impact pretty quickly. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about this because I know the scouting combine is going on right now. I know a lot of Lions fans are looking at all these different edge rushers. I've already talked about a few of them, but this is one guy that I haven't talked about because I always thought that he would potentially be out of the range of the Lions. But I keep looking at the draft boards, and it's like, okay, this guy could fall to the midpoint of the first round. The Lions at pick 28, they could, in theory, trade up to the middle of the first round to get him, and it wouldn't necessarily cost them a whole hell of a lot. So this is a guy that definitely you should not overlook. You should not think, well, we can't potentially get him. If you want him, Brad Holmes is going to go get him. And again, we've seen Brad Holmes make moves like that before in the past. We've seen him how he's moved up from later on in the first round to the middle of the first round, even sometimes almost up to the top 10 to go and get a guy that he truly wants. Because, hey, we saw him do it last year when he traded up for Terry and Arnold. We saw him do it in 2022 when he traded up to get Jameson Williams. So it is not even remotely out of the possibility for thinking Brad Holmes could trade up and get this guy. And if we get him, good God Almighty, it is going to really have a huge impact on our defense. I truly 100% believe it. But having said that, I'm going to end this episode, and I just want to say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. And with that, I also want to say this. To all those that have made donations to my GoFundMe to help me try and get, me back on my feet with the whole car situation, again, I just want to say I'm so thankful for everything you guys have done. You guys have been truly amazing. I'm grateful. I'm thankful. I'm appreciative beyond all measure for your guys' generosity. If you guys haven't had a chance to donate yet, please, again, I encourage you all, because, again, the more funds that I can get to, get myself back on my feet with a car, the better it's going to be for my life, and also at the same time, it's also going to help me and my family out while we're trying to deal with this difficult situation. But I also want to say, you know what? Hey, if you can't do that, you can still do this. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, please make sure you hit that bell notification icon so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Also want to highly encourage y'all to share the content. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook. The same goes for my GoFundMe page. Also, when it comes to the content, whether this is the first time you're watching me or you guys have been watching me forever and a day, I hope y'all enjoyed the content. I hope y'all got something out of it. And I also hope everybody has something in their life that makes them happy, makes them smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.